To this sanctuary, to this home. For my entire ministry at this congregation, which has only been a year, John sat in this front row. And he would do so faithfully, week after week, even in rainy weather. He is someone who showing up mattered. Whether it was meeting you for coffee, calling you on the phone, having an idea or a project, looking for partners to do that with, John is someone who showed up, who was creative, and who invited all of us as friends, as family, as neighbors, as colleagues, into this life of unfolding adventure. And as we, you and I, gather on this rainy day in this sanctuary, in the fellowship hall, on Zoom, despite the challenges of a flood, of disruption, of stories that in his newspaper days he would love to cover, we remember John. We honor John. And we recall that despite challenges, difficulties, all that life brings, John constantly sought to grow, to change, to connect. Whether it was his ministry of helping people grow into fulfilling careers, right livelihood, his spiritual studies in an ashram, growing as a father, running a cafe in Provincetown, editing a newspaper in Brooklyn Heights when he was 23 years old, reporting in Harlem, serving in the US military in the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis, working in mental health, running a drop-in computer learning center in Brooklyn, and brainstorming about how to do something similar in the basement of our congregation. This was a man who loved life, who lived life. And he was born in the shadow of a global war. And his family left Europe just in time before that hellish conflict disrupted millions of lives. His family was able to come to this country, to that city down the river, and start a new life. And through those decisions, countless unfolding thousands of lives were changed. John wrote the following words in his memoir, which you can find in the fellowship hall. This is on page 143. We do learn, usually through personal experience, that setbacks and tragedies, like pleasures and successes, are natural parts of the ebb and flow of life. Even in dark times, we know at some level that this too shall pass. After initial terrible feelings, we gather our thoughts, bring our strengths to bear, and we overcome those hard times. In these periods, John wrote, we remember that time and more importantly, caring people will eventually make things better. Over the hour ahead, we are entering a sacred time of space and connection. We will sing songs, we will hear readings, we will share reflections. To help mark the sanctity of this time, I ask that be sure any mobile or electronic devices are turned off. Take a breath and be comfortable in your seat. As Unitarian Universalist, a tradition John has been part of in some form since the 1980s, we light a symbol of hope, a chalice. The chalice originally was the emblem of the Unitarian Service Committee, which was founded in that awful war that haunted John's birth, as a symbol of hope. So we light a chalice this morning on this day, which is sad, and which is special, and which is important. And we light this chalice this morning to remember that caring people heal, and caring people offer hope. Reverend Don McKinney was John's first Unitarian minister in Brooklyn. And Reverend McKinney once said that the call of religious community is to raise and probe life's deepest questions, to work together to reinforce and cherish traditions and shared convictions, to face and wrestle with unpleasant and difficult realities in themselves and in larger community, and in all ways possible, nurture individual human dignity. With that as our basis, we lift up as holy poems, stories, and reflections from many traditions. And today we will hear several poems from our time, because what's happening now is just as sacred as what is ancient. Our first reading this morning will be by John's daughter, youngest daughter, Allison.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here today with us to celebrate my father, our father's life. Can you hear me? So I searched and I searched for many readings and writings and things that would speak to me and that would speak to you and that would encompass what my father would want to have said about him in this. And it overwhelmed me until a few days ago when I was reading through his journals and I came across a couple of his own writings. And a warmth and peace came over me, and I knew that the right choice was to read his words to you guys today. Could have chosen better, by John. Could have chosen better if I'd known the outcome first. Can't say it was the best of times, but surely not the worst. If I had a clearer vision in making my decision, avoided the doubting and self-questioning derision, second-guessing all these blessings, what's with all this messing? Just suppose that I could change it. Would I then rearrange it? Rear mirror vision, reviewing this life, with eyes of no regret. The worst thing that could happen hasn't happened yet. It's been quite a life, and perfectly all right. No doubt someday I'll figure it out. I don't know if he did. Miles yet to go, gas in the tank, eats in the cupboard, cash in the bank. Ride the big airplane until I am home. Play with questions, go for the bone, speak the unknown. Loved this lifetime, can't say I deserve it. Time to give back, best as I can serve it. Loving this journey, can say I deserve it. Time to give back as best as I can serve it. Ages and stages. Ageism, sageism. Ages and stages. Ageism, sageism. Now hear me right. The dragon is dictating the very words I write. Let's say it again, say it and pray. I may have to do it the old-fashioned way. Typing and griping, whoop-de-doo. I can grow older and bolder. I can grow older and better than you. Older and bolder, it's a no-brainer. Watch as I now outgrow my container. No potted plant, root-bound and straining. No shrinking violet, I am my own pilot. Don't give me a label and don't set my table. Don't think you know me, for that is the moment I plan to outgrow me. When I read that, it felt so much like my father, our father. You know, don't tell me what you want me to say, don't, let me say what I want, and barrel through. I have one more of his to share with you today. Be your own self. You got to be yourself, not some pale imitation. You've got to be yourself. All the other selves are taken. If you can't be yourself, you'll find you're mistaken. For someone else is someone else. No future in faking. If you can't be yourself and feel like you're choking, the one that you're hoping for has already been spoken for. So best to be true to yourself and follow your weird. The worst thing that can happen is better than you feared. You are unique, an absolute original. Be a Greek, or freak, or aboriginal. Be it PhD or GMO-free, still an absolute original. So be yourself, not off the shelf, not carbonized or copy. You are unique, you lovely freak. Be your own self, stay happy, be true. Two quick things I wanted to share is one is Shel Silverstein was always very important to us, and we found it on his shelf as well. I do remember, having him read those to me as a kid and stuff. And there's a small poem that Shel Silverstein wrote that spoke to me. There are no happy endings. Endings are the saddest part. So give me a happy middle and a very happy start. And I'm going to pass it to my sister with one last thing. Unable are the loved to die, for love is immortality. Someone who is loved doesn't die, but remains in the hearts and memories of those they left behind. Thanks. Let's pass it to my sister Lisa.
Our second reading this morning is from Lisa, John's eldest daughter.
So following my dad's act is going to be a little difficult, but I'll do my best. He was a man of many words. I'm a little off the shelf today, so I'm pulling this reading off the shelf. So it's not unique or different, but it spoke to me when I found it, and it is called He Is Gone by David Harkins. You can shed tears. I was trying to be strong about it. Okay. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Thank you.
One of the joys of seeing the sacred in so many spaces is that music is sacred. Not all our sacred texts have to be spoken and written. Some can be sung. Our next offering will be from Robin and Michael, and it's a beautiful song for us this morning.
Hi everyone, I'm John's middle daughter. You can come in. And this is my partner, Michael. So when we cleaned out our dad's apartment, we found so many CDs, and a lot of them were doubles or triples even. And Gil, can you turn this down a little bit, please? This microphone? It's up here. That's okay. I'll just stand back from it. There was a lot of Dylan, there were a lot of Beatles, there's a lot of Harry Chapin, Harry Nilsson, and that will be playing in the fellowship hall afterwards. But I was thinking of what song to do here, and the first thing that popped into my mind is this Bob Dylan song. He had a lot of Dylan, called Mama, You've Been on My Mind. This is a great song. And I was like, okay, I'll just look for a version that Michael and I can learn. And I know he did a duet with Joan Baez of this song. But so when I started looking, like the first thing I found was this Joan Baez version without Dylan, where she says, "Daddy, you've been on my mind." And I was like, oh God, now I really have to do this song. So that's how I'm gonna sing it. My mom refused to let me sing it, "Mama, you've been on my mind." She's like, I'm still here, so. Perhaps it's the color of the sun, cut flat and covering. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna sing this song. It's okay. Yeah, I know it's okay. This music is like the worst tearjerker ever. Let's try this again. Perhaps it's the color of the sun, cut flat. I can't do it, I'm sorry. I don't think I can do it. Covering the crossroads I'm standing at. Maybe it's the weather or something like that. But Daddy, you've been on my mind. Yeah. I don't mean trouble, please don't put me down, don't get upset. I am not pleading or saying I can't forget you. I do not walk the floor, bow down and bend, but yet, Daddy, you've been on my mind. I sing much better than this usually. Even though my thoughts are hazy and my thoughts, they might be narrow, where you been, don't bother me or bring me down with sorrow. It don't even matter where you're waking up tomorrow. Daddy, you've been on my mind. Okay, gonna do this one. When you wake up in the morning, baby, look outside your mirror. You know I won't be next to you. You know I won't be near. I'd just be curious to know if you could see yourself as clear as someone who has had you on their minds.
Thank you for those beautiful reflections. John would like to have another word, and the next reading is from some of his early writing. Early writing as a reporter in the city in the 50s. And Gil Long, his good friend and colleague, will be offering these reflections from John's days as a newspaper reporter. We are lucky.
Can I add something to that? Sorry, I was supposed to do that, but I forgot. So when we packed up our dad's apartment, we found a box of 60-year-old newspapers of all of his clippings from these papers he worked at in Harlem. And he was like a very prolific writer. There were pseudonyms on some of the articles, and we know because they said Jean-Pierre, but he wrote so much of the papers. And he had like a real flair for metaphor and a real people, sorry, I have to go. And of the people perspective. They're like a little dated, kind of culturally, but I think you'll get the idea. And I wanted to say one more thing about Gil. Maybe you'll mention this later, but in case you don't. Gil made this amazing video of our dad that's playing in the small blue room off of Fellowship Hall, and I just don't want anyone to miss it because it's incredible.
The first one from the New York Age is called The Bard. I loves you, Langston, and you too, Robert Glenn. These two formidable talents have at least spun a black folk presentation that can compare with Porgy in quality. Catfish Row can now die its dated death as a representation of a people, and Shakespeare in Harlem as a worthy successor. The work is a sensitive and compelling series of flashes on the Harlem scene. The rhymed verses in this garland are each, in their own way, poignant and significant. It would be unfair to call them vignettes, for many are merely peekaboo insights, yet they are all human and warm, flecting glimpses of Harlem life and black attitudes. This is from the New York Citizen Call, 1960. 150,000 fans cheer. A quiet young man with a quiet brown suit and an explosive left hook took a long, slow ride through Harlem last Sunday and found 150,000 friends he never knew he had. Perched on the rear seat of a snow-white convertible, Floyd Patterson rode home in glory like the knights of old, modestly accepting a jubilant homage. He was their symbol. He was their champion. He was the kid from the slums who brought glory to his people and the heavyweight championship of the world back to the United States. The history maker waved first to the left, then to the right, and then smiled at his public. Right, and this is also from the New York Citizen Call. Memo to rat ranchers, a revolt is brewing. The sow-bellied boys downtown had better get their obese posteriors moving and fast. They had better scurry to close some of the vicious loopholes in the city's housing laws. If something isn't done and PDQ, Hewlin Jack, can make indignant noises all he pleases and inspect to high heaven, but neither he nor the mayor's Doolittle Housing Committee men will be able to put the pieces back together again. As it stands, the landlords are stampeding all over the courts, the city agencies, and worse of all, the hapless tenants. The gimmicks they use are countless. I hear the rumblings of a housing explosion in the making. The tenants will revolt under militant leadership, and nobody will be able to do a blue bloody thing to stop the steamroller once it starts.
What I think is important to name is that John accepted that position at New York Citizen Call and turned down the opportunity to work at TV Guide because he thought and knew that that paper was more important for the life of the city. And I think that speaks deeply to who he is. Now is the time in our service for moments of reflection. Stories are powerful. Stories are how we remember and honor our ancestors and those who come before. We will hear a series of reflections from John's family member and friends. They will offer us stories to hold in our hearts. Our first story today is from Robin, who I invite up now.
Okay, guys. I really hope I'm going to keep it together up here. You all know John, I think most of you. And he was tenacious, funny, courageous, bright, and bursting with self-esteem. Stubborn and irreverent also come to mind. Dad was not typical, and he certainly was not a typical dad. One of my earliest memories of him is he teaching my older sister Lisa and me blues songs like this one, and Lisa, please join in. And if you know it, Allison, join in too. Ready? Yeah. This is going to come up. I can't, there's other songs that are too dirty that I can't sing them. Which one are you doing? Derby Town. Oh, okay. Well, you knew it. In Derby Town, the streets are made of glass, and every time a girl would pass, they'd look right up her inky-dinky Derby Town. And if you think I lied, all you do is go there and see the same as I. And you know, we can meet you outside for the dirtier ones. So that gives you a sense of the kind of father my dad was and the sense of humor he had. Another song he loved had these lines, and he put this one in his memoir at the beginning. Does the spearmint lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight? If you put it on the left side, will you find it on the right? And he went on in his memoir to say, quote, some might vouch that sums me up. When the chewing gum loses flavor, I have been known to move on. That moving on quality has led me through about 10 careers, 30 or more jobs, 3 marriages, 2 relationships, dozens of interesting experiences, and 2 near-death medical crises. Both songs capture 2 sides of him. On the one side, he's spending time with his family and laughing and singing, connecting in a way that was definitely unique to him. And on the other side, he's wandering, searching for something somewhere else. And it's the wandering that led him down all the crazy and colorful roads of life. When I started conceiving this remembrance, I was like, what am I going to say? And that song, Derby Town, just like popped into my head. And then I thought, like, well, when I was trying to write this remembrance at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like, oh, well, that makes total sense, because this love of music that my dad had that's the place where we connected most. And so, you know, Dad, he was one of the earliest and most earnest supporters of me as a musician. This is a craft I came to late in life by rock and roll standards, or probably not late in life by folk standards, but. So years ago when I made my first record and had a CD release party, my dad was like, okay, I have a project for myself for your CD release party. And he videotaped it, and then he like made all these copies of these videotapes. And when we were cleaning out his apartment, we found all these labels from that CD release party. I mean, it was so long ago, but it was really sweet to happen upon them. But, you know, though my dad was supportive, he was also sometimes annoyingly frank and would give you feedback that you did not ask for. So when I released my second album, my second solo album, he said, "Hey Rob, I listened to your album. It sounds good, but I can hear when your hand moves up and down the neck of the guitar. Can you fix that?" The album was like in its package and everything. Like John being John. No filter, said more than one acquaintance after he died. So, you know, he wasn't always the easiest person to take. But despite that, and the fact that he saw himself as something of a commitment phobe, he ultimately committed himself deeply in the last quarter of his life to helping others. He supported people. I think this is really when he found his stride as a human being. It was after he had this experience, this near-death experience, and then he started professionally working with people recovering from mental illness as they reintegrated into the job market. And then this like kind of led him to the work he was doing with seniors more recently and serving the senior community. And, you know, and then he was part of this congregation too. He worked tirelessly to bring in programming and technological advances, as Gil and Reverend Daniel know. And Reverend Daniel and I joked that Dad probably saw him as the unofficial operational director of the UU. And then I thought, well, if Dad heard me say that, he would either laugh heartily and say, "Yeah, that's right," or he would correct me and say, "Technical director." So after he died, my sisters and I were embraced by his friends at the UU, and we're really grateful for that because it was like this huge part of his life that all of a sudden it was part of our life. And it was really a no-brainer that the celebration should be in this life celebration should be in this house. And it gives us so much joy to know that like he not only found communities that supported him, but he helped build them. And he would find himself in like really interesting situations. Like he would just wander into a cool hang. And so it's no surprise that he ended up living in this house full of creative people. And we met all of them when we were cleaning out his apartment, which let me tell you, that was an experience. But anyway, we met all these housemates who were like so cool. And among many interesting characters, there's a beekeeper. And so we really love the fact that the housemates, they would all have regular game nights and happy hours. A bunch of them are here, actually. And during the high pandemic, they would hold their happy hours outdoors. So he lived in such a great way. And we also imagine that he held court at many of those gatherings. He was engaging and engaged, and he was bright and bursting with self-esteem. Sorry, I repeated that. Where's my copy editor? I know most people are one of a kind, but Dad, he really epitomized that term. Thank you all for being in his life and for being here today. He would have loved this party. I just want to say one more thing. In true Aigner style, we have like with food afterward. Lisa's going to tell you more about that. But we also have a gift table of things that he made that we want to give to you. And I can't think of a better tribute. He would be like, "Yes, you should give away the things I made at my life celebration." Anyway, thank you for listening.
And I do want to apologize to June for skipping her reading. We will make sure that happens. But right now, we hear from Allison.
So many wonderful faces. Those I hope to meet, and those who I've known for years, and those who I've just met. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I told my father this morning I was mad he left so soon, and that I miss him more than words can express. We go along day by day, living our lives, and while we know that the end is an event none of us can escape, we are still surprised when it becomes a reality in our own lives with those we love. It's weird for me because I knew my father was getting older, but I still saw him as the man who could do everything, a jack of all trades. Can you fix my resume? Help me research tires for my car? How do I fix my printer? You know, do my resume, I think I said that. We often spoke, etc., etc. We often spoke at the end of the day on my way home from work. And I still find myself thinking, I need to call my dad. And then the sadness washes over me that our 5 to 10 minute phone calls at 9 p.m. are no more. I have struggled for weeks, agonizing over what I wanted to say here today and how to wrap up such an incredibly diverse and interesting life, and all the memories and anecdotes into a few sentences within this moment of time we are all sharing here today. Words, memories, thoughts would spill through my head, but putting them on paper was so incredibly challenging. I have so many memories, some good, some not so great, but through it all, I always knew my father loved me. And at 6 a.m. this morning, as I read over what I wrote and realized I realized the most important thing I want to say was I love you and I miss you more than I ever thought possible. You have left an immeasurable, large void in our lives. I will always be grateful for the relationship we forged in my adult years, how he supported me 22 years ago through an immensely difficult time, and how our relationship grew as a result. Memories flow through my head of summers on the Cape, of him telling me how proud he was of me for completing my master's degree, and how he bitched and moaned about wearing, quote unquote, a monkey suit for my wedding. And then wearing it with pride. My friends always thought he was terrific, and I always groaned over the complexities and challenges that made my father the man he was. I wish I had him here today to groan in person. Our father was also a huge pain in the ass. Always providing an opinion, as my sister Robin said, or commentary on something whether you wanted to hear it or not. I miss that now and would give anything to have him question my decisions, monopolize a conversation about his next project, or tell me one of his wise little sayings or quotes that often in the moment I would roll my eyes at. Or when he would call me 3 times in a row, as though I missed the first 2 times. He once told me that it was harder to ignore him that way. And when I was younger, he used to call me intentionally very early in the morning to catch me off guard so I would answer the phone. Such a pain. Again, I was speaking with my father this morning while getting ready and told him I was mad. He left this world too early. Then I felt he spoke to me as the next sentence in my head was that he felt called to be Papi John in the actual clouds and help those in a new realm. Whether this is true or not is how I choose to think he is spending his time on the other side. Again, over the course of the last few weeks while reviewing the many writings and journals and scribbles and books of my father, I saw a theme. One of self-reflection, of awareness of himself and his relationships, both spiritually and with friends and family. It shined a light on his journey in a way I had previously not experienced in his living years. One passage he wrote was, "Flow with change with change. We can shape change, make alliances, make peace with change, fight with change. Change always wins. No one wins a war with change, but we can shape it, redirect it, and grow with it. We will allow it to be. In life, I recognize this growth and evolution in small ways, and I see it more in death, in the past, and in talking with friends. But in reading it, it helped us to, in evolution, but it helped us to grow and bond and led to conversations of spirituality and podcasts, which I will always keep with me. It led him to say, I love you more, and to call and to ask how I was. He became less self-involved and more aware and caring of others. Although what made us love him most was his charisma, his humor, his love for life, his constant striving for knowledge, for change and growth within himself, his life, which impacted all of us who knew him. He had a few other notations I would like to share, and I thought were funny, well, just his own introspections. Listen deeply, consider thoughtfully, self-patience, patience with stupidity, self-patience, listen deeply, consider thoughtfully, self-patience, and patience with stupidity. And my favorites, hold my fast tongue. Just says so much, doesn't it? And give myself permission to be human. This is what has been my mantra. Give myself permission to grieve, to express, to be human, and show emotions. These are just a few that opened a window into his mind, for which makes me sad that he is no longer here. For me to delve deeper, to know my father better. It also makes me happy and grateful that I have these notes and can take a new journey with him. Lastly, I just want to share that the one thing I think that my father will leave behind, and then with all the struggles of his passing, I am grateful that this may have brought my sisters and I closer together. And while we will miss him forever, and he will always be in our hearts and our minds, I am grateful that I have you all here today to share in those memories. And I invite you to please tell me your shares, your thoughts, your moments with Dad, with John. I want to hear your journey with him, as it will help me with my journey. Thank you.
I now invite John's brother, Stephen.
Wow. Another Aigner with something to say. Fancy that. I know John would feel a lot more comfortable standing here talking to you than I do. I'm trying to do it out of love and remembrance for Brother John. The one thing that I heard, one of the things that I heard a little earlier was about John's work in Harlem. I am 3 years plus younger than Brother John. When he was working as the only white man in the newspaper in Harlem, I went to visit him one day. Now, we grew up with very liberal parents. They had no hate for any color or eye structure, and that's the way we grew up. But here I was in Harlem with a white face like mine and a brother who had a white face, and everybody else was not the same color. I was petrified. John was as at ease as I can ever remember him being, and I guess that's one of the things over the years that rubs off, or I hope has rubbed off on me. Brother John, man, do I miss you. No more, bro. To call your number for no other reason but to say hi, or to ask a question, or just discuss anything. We always did that, but no more, bro. You had more experience with more occupations, as you have all heard. Specialties: news reporter, barista, salesman, computer tutor, job father, livelihood person, videographer, mental health worker, blogger, and these are only to name the few that immediately come to mind. More than any 3 people that I know combined. I only had 2 professions my entire life. But no more, bro. What an arbitrary twist of fate. Memories we alone shared. Sidewalk handball at the end of 96th Street. Punchball in the middle of 95th Street. Slipping out unnoticed from 44 West and running away from home in the middle of the night to avoid the row between Lucian and Mady with the cops there. The coffee shop in P-Town. Oh, Sheila has stepped out for a moment, but if you can imagine, in the back of the coffee shop was a space about so big, that was their bedroom. They stayed there the whole time. Me, the kid brother, I slept in the crawl space above the plumbing supply store that was very next door. But it was cool. When John asked me originally if I wanted to spend the summer with he and Sheila, they were going to open up a coffee shop in Provincetown? Where in the hell is Provincetown? Well, it's at the end of the Cape, you know, where the Cape goes up, blah, blah, blah. So what's in Provincetown? Artists, tourists, and queers. Okay, sounds cool. The only thing we came away from that summer was nothing. Actually, I recently learned Sheila saved $15. That's not nothing. Growing dope in Mount Vernon's backyard. He supplied all his friends. Me too. Expo 67, the World Fair in Montreal. Sheila and John and I flew up there in a 4-seater Cessna 172, all the way up to Canada in a little bitty airplane with only one engine. Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. We had a great time. Expo 67 wasn't bad either. Our 1-month tour in a motorhome in Mexico with Jet, a rather large, imposing-looking black lab mix, beautiful dog, shiny hair, and Riley, another beautiful half and half golden retriever yellow lab mix in the motorhome. And one of the experiences were getting stopped by an army checkpoint on a road in Mexico, just a road, full stop, and a young man, he may have been out of high school, with an M16 in uniform, no English whatsoever, no Spanish, hardly any. Get out of the vehicle. No comprende. No habla español. Out of the vehicle is what he wanted us. Well, we had been briefed, never leave your vehicle, especially if it's a motorhome with stuff inside. Well, about this time, as he was standing by, and I don't remember him racking up a shell into the chamber, but Jet came to say hello right here. John was in the left seat, the window was open, the youngster was standing there with his face in the window to begin with. Jet came right up here, Riley came right up here, 2 big dog jowls, looking to lick his nose, but he didn't know that. My understanding now is that dogs are not meant to be pets. They're meant to be guards, and they keep them on the roofs, the flat roofs of the houses, to warn against any danger. So this young man, he may have even been older than a teenager. When these 2 dogs stuck their muzzles that close to his, he said, okay, go. And off we went. What a cool month that was in that motorhome. Tanks and cannons, singo, and other catchphrases, private jokes known to us alone. That was some of our secret shit. No more bro. I loved having you, John, as my brother. Thanks for being there as long as you were. But I got you one. You had 1 valve put in, I got 2. No more bro. Maybe sometime you could send a secret high, some way, somehow. I miss you, brother. Thanks.
Our next story is from John's sister, Anne Marie.
This is me rushing, by the way. Hi, everybody. I'm way up front, so I didn't get a chance to look at how wonderful this is. A packed house. He would love it. He would so love it. The other thing I want to make sure I say is my hat's off to the three girls. You bring tears to my eyes. How amazing you've been. Really. He would be over the moon. I know. And I promised I wasn't going to cry because I actually have makeup on, which I don't usually do. So I'm not going to cry because it will run down my face. I am known to cry at these kinds of things. I remember when I was doing this for my dad many years ago, I think I sobbed right through all my remarks. I also wanted to say that when I'm going to read mine.
Sorry, and Henry, hang on 1 second. We're just kind of-
Somebody's car? You mean that's not in tribute to me and my remarks? Taken care of. When John died, and I was thinking about what I would say, I wanted to say something, but it didn't come to me right away. And I was struggling with it, and you'll understand why when I begin to tell you my relationship with my brother, my oldest brother. And then with an edible and a Gatorade, it came to me for some reason. It's legal now, by the way. I do want to say hello to everybody. I think this is wonderful. I don't know who you all are. We're from Boston, and even Mother Nature couldn't stop us yesterday. It was pretty bad, but my daughter is extraordinary and got us here safely. Wouldn't have missed it for anything anyway. I am Anne Marie Aigner. I'm an Aigner. The room is filled with many of us today. I am John's, I am John's older sister. Our younger sister, Catherine, passed away 9 years ago. So now it's just you and me, buddy, you and me. I should let you know that I did not grow up with my brothers. When our parents divorced, and you've heard some of what led up to that, Dad took the boys north to the Berkshires while Mom took the girls south to Florida. And while Kathy and I did spend summers in the Berkshires, by then John was already either in college or off to one of his many adventures, and I really didn't see him much. I spent a lot more time with Stephen. But he and I became a lot closer as we got older, which is, thank God. When I started thinking about what I would say today, if anything, the one thing that kept repeating itself in my head was that John really was the quintessential Aigner, right? The quintessential Aigner. You've heard a lot of adjectives and a lot of stories, but he was the spitting image, in my opinion, of my dad, who was the quintessential Aigner. Smart, very smart, probably the smartest of all of us, really. Started college at 15. I mean, who does that? Glib, verbal, you've heard all of this already. Bossy, brash, even loud at times. Doesn't that also describe all the Aigners? All right? And many of you are in the room, so you can nod one way or the other. It actually includes me, except for the bossy part, right? That is my daughter you're hearing, by the way. That is my daughter. The one thing I kept coming back to as an Aigner, he was entrepreneurial. The quintessence, really, he was entrepreneurial. Some have said he couldn't hold a job, which is why he had so many jobs, but I think he was just constantly creating new roles for himself, always, till the day he died. Or he'd get a little bored and he'd move on to the next adventure or the next challenge. I just see it, I don't think I honestly don't think that he was so much searching, he was just entrepreneurial. And he liked creating, and he liked talking, and I think it was genetic, really. He was born that way. He was predisposed to always be searching and trying. He liked challenges, he chased results, he was always on to something. Like our dad, John had new projects on deck till the day he died, right? You all know that. You cleaned out his place, so you know. And he would call towards the end, he would call me. He always claimed it was a butt dial, but I really think that since Anne-Marie was at the top of the alphabet, I think he wound up calling me quite a bit. He was an Aigner, like our father, like our Uncle Etienne, like our Aunt Betty and Uncle Bob. My sister bought a gold mine in Nevada, for heaven's sakes. She was entrepreneurial too. And myself, when I couldn't be a broadcaster 35, 40 years ago, and I had become a single mother, I just pulled out my Smith Corona and I started a marketing agency, which with my partner, we still run today. Many of you other Aigners and people in this room and other family members have also started and run businesses. It's just part of our DNA. As I said, John was the quintessential Aigner, quintessential entrepreneur. He loved brainstorming. He stayed current. He, believe it or not, introduced me to ChatGPT. He introduced me. Not that I'm very good at it, but he introduced it to me. Said I should try it. He was curious, he was creative, he was fearless, he was always confident in his abilities. He never really doubted himself. That's amazing. That was Dad too. Never doubted himself to the very end. Even if something didn't work out, failure didn't stop him, and you've heard some of that today. Like it never stopped our father or our aunt and uncles. He plowed through or around it, and he found something else to challenge him. He was always working on something. Doesn't that just sound like our father, Lucian? At the very end, at the age of 97, he was still organizing his collection, correct? Till the very, very, very end, till we actually had to take him out of his home. Like our father, Brother John was at the heart of our family. When his heart stopped on August 1st, our family's heart skipped a beat. We will go on, but we won't be the same. Thank you all, and thank you all for being here, really.
I am very honored to introduce June Sidman for our next reflection.
Well, I'm the first non-Aigner. I don't know if I can follow this up, but I'll do the best I can. John and I met the day Hurricane Sandy hit, 2012. We were together for 11 years. He had been married 3 times. It was easy for us to agree to forget about marriage. We never lived together, but we did a lot of personal growth, each on our own self. It was often not easy, but I think we had good intentions and we were able to work through our conflicts. Sometimes it took a few days. At this point, I feel so grateful for all of it, and proud of the hard work we did. John was an optimist. He helped me to see my creativity both as an artist, painter, and in my relationship with my family and friends. It is very hard for me now not having him to talk to. Sometimes I talk to him and imagine what he would say to me. I am joining a grief group that is meeting at the Ossining Library, where John and I led meditation classes for several years. We even had a Catholic nun in the class. It was very hard to walk into the library for the first meeting. The meditation group is still meeting under new leadership online since COVID. John helped me to get my artwork out into the world. He had so much creative energy. I imagine it came from his dad. He helped me to believe in myself. My favorite trip John and I took with him was to Havana, Cuba, with Global Volunteers, where we both taught English and spoke some Spanish with local Cubans. John shared with me his love of music, which centered mostly on folk music. He had a good voice, which he mostly used in this room. He took some guitar lessons, but his creativity took him in other directions because he wanted to be really good at what he did, and he often was. I am now learning about grief. I find it so hard to believe that he is no longer here. We used to sit over there. I guess I believe I am still learning from him, and his presence will stay with me. Sometimes I'm okay, and sometimes it is very hard. I miss him very much. That's it. I'm not an Aigner. I don't have much to say.
Our next reflection is from Gil Long, John's friend and colleague.
Also, not being an Aigner, this will be short. Having been John's co-pilot on pretty much all his digital adventures over the last 5 or 6 years, it's taught me a great deal. For the most part, I only have doubts as far as my abilities go. And he never did, ever, doubted my abilities. So most of the time, I just thought he was crazy and went along with it. But the fact of the matter is that it was my job to make his whatever harebrained idea he came up with that day and to make it real. And I became pretty good at it. And it was his faith in me that gave me the impetus to do it, to make it all happen. And I think one of the things that really we bonded over was an insatiable curiosity. And we were always, brainstorming about what could the possible next project be, or some other aspect of whatever we were working on at the time. Could we expand it or reach a different market or audience or whatever? And it was exciting, doing that day after day. And And the thing is that he never lost that. He never stopped doing that. I remember probably 3 or 4 days before he died, one of our last conversations was he was giving me his thoughts on things that we should add to the website. And so it never let up. And for that, I will be immensely grateful. And for teaching me just to have a little bit of faith in my abilities. Because he gave that to me, and I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you.
Before our rituals of remembrance, our candles of remembrance, Allison has one final offer to remind us how we can share our stories going forward. Which is that when you go into fellowship hall afterward, there are books where you can write some memories, reflections, and have those preserved and connected. So that is what we will hold close. During this time of open remembrance, every week in our congregation, we do candles of joy and sorrow and hope. We do that in different ways. Sometimes people come to the mic and share a joy or a sorrow or a hope. Sometimes people raise a hand and I'll light a candle. All of us in this room have a sacred memory of John, a funny memory of John, an ordinary memory, a difficult memory, a joyous memory. If you feel called to share one of those stories, you are invited to come up. If you feel called to hold that memory and send it into this room, lift your hand and I'll light a candle. Now is the moment of our reflections, our memories, our joys and sorrows.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Nelson. I've been a member of this congregation since 2017 when my father died. And it was the place that I came because I was so distraught and finally needed a community to hold me. And but John, on to John. I really respected John, and I especially respected his freedom of spirit and I wish I could be more like John, and I hope when I get older, I'll be a little more like John. I just remember we had a very contentious time with one of our former ministers, and I don't want to, bring up bad memories or anything, but there might have been a perhaps overly dramatic sermon going on at the time, and John was sitting right there, and suddenly he just said a word out loud in the middle of a sermon. And I'm racking my brain trying to remember what word it was, but I think it was string bean. And I'm if anyone can remember that, please tell me, because I was amazed. And nobody said anything, but as we were leaving, I was like, John, that was great. And he said, I gotta try to stop doing that stuff. Anyway, I really respected John a lot, and it's great to see the family, and thank you so much for bringing his memorial here. He was definitely an addition to this whole community.
I'm Al Raymond. I didn't know John all that long. I missed his 85th birthday. But in all modesty, I think I came up with the idea of having a senior game day, and John latched onto it immediately. He picked Thursday, and for a few years it was just him and me, and he was a great opponent. He beat me 2 times out of every 3, and but he never crowed about it. He always gave me a break, and he always his highest accolade was "you played well," and I always appreciated his. And he always told me when I shuffled cards that I belonged in shuffling school. He was a great opponent, and I learned a lot from him. He was a good loser and a good winner, as I said. I really miss him. And my last words to him in the hospital a day or so before he died was, I had no way of knowing that death was coming so close, that I said, John, I'll know you've completely recovered when you come out and clobber me at Canasta. But unfortunately, that never happened. But and when he did pass away, I was worried that game day would be over. But since then, some nice people have followed in his footsteps, and the games have continued every Thursday. I'd like to see more. So anyway, John, wherever you are, I love you.
My name is Nora Mulligan, and John and I were 2 of the first people on the Leadership Development Committee, which we ran so well that it doesn't exist anymore. It was an interesting experience working with him, and actually one of the third person is no longer part of this congregation, so draw your own conclusions. John could be difficult. John could be very critical. John had no filters and would say whatever whatever came into his head. On the other hand, the last time I ran a service here in the summer, afterwards John said to me, quote, "You nailed it." And I felt about 10 feet tall. So wherever you are, John, you nailed it.
My name's Joanne Forbes, and I had the honor of John asking me to write the foreword to what he called his vanity project. And I'm very grateful to be able to read it to you, because if left to my own devices, I'd need more tissues as well. So bear with me. I had the privilege of knowing John for more decades than I cared to admit. Suffice it to say that John is one of those people who makes life interesting and conveys the sense that is full of infinite possibilities. It was my good fortune to meet John as I was launching a program, a philosophy, a viewpoint that was radical in the field of mental health, where I spent my entire career. I was determined to support the idea that people could recover from mental illness. Even working in a very progressive state-operated psychiatric hospital on Staten Island in New York City, it was a novel concept back then. People actually did recover, and they can recover, but no one wanted to believe that. Meaningful employment was a key factor on that journey. I knew the minute I met John that his approach to employment as livelihood was a perfect fit. Plus, his easygoing nature and can-do attitude was irresistible going into something we called the Jobs Project. John joined the crusade and became an invaluable, indispensable part of the mission. Who he was and the life that crafted him were perfect for what we were trying to accomplish. I needed people who could think outside the box. Little example of that, up until that time, the only thing we clinicians could think that people with a diagnosis could do were the three things: food, filth, and filing. And John had people building computers and making films. Just saying. He could and did what needed to be done. He was given an opportunity to run free, and he did not squander the chance. In a lot of ways, I think John's presence helped us all to run free with our ideas and determination to support recovery and assist patients to build purposeful, meaningful lives. Folks needed someone like John to believe in them. John's anything is possible view of life was exactly the attitude that someone struggling with stigma and self-recriminations needed from a coach and a cheerleader. This book tells the story of that and more, and I believe it will leave all readers with excitement about the possibilities in their own lives. I say this because John excelled at life as he followed his own drumbeat and recognized misfortunes as gifts. As an acquaintance of his so aptly noted, John definitely did not play by someone else's rules. For our work back then, and perhaps for your personal life work now, the philosophy he lived embodied by what he wrote was magic. If you read his life story and enjoy perspectives from others who have accompanied him on that journey, I think you will see what I mean. Here are those essential viewpoints. I see life as stepping stones rather than pivot points. Obstacles don't faze me. I don't go through them. I don't go over, I go around. All my life I have flourished when turned loose. Rather, it's about finding out about what a person wants and then showing them how to get it. But to get out in the moving water and just go with the flow. This is how John saw the world, as you will learn when you read these pages, and marvel at a life well lived. Perhaps like me and thousands of others whose lives he has touched, you will find yourself inspired by all the possibilities that lay ahead. When I opened this book this morning, it said, "Thanks for your support, John." I laughed. It was the other way around. So thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Betsy Tomic. I'm in this congregation, and two things. One is, John actually helped me change careers at the age of 64. And, you know, his follow your weird thing phrase is really something I think about like at least once a week, because I'm dedicated my life to keep following my weird. But what I really wanted to say was, as you can see, we have an art gallery in our sanctuary, and a couple years ago, we featured John's father's photography.
And I bring it up because John loved it. He's like sat there, you know, being the king, and everyone would come in and talk to him, and he would be able to talk about his memories of when that picture was taken and when that picture was taken. And, you know, in hindsight, I'm so glad we could facilitate John having that pleasure. Thank you.
That's actually a pretty good segue into what I was going to say. I'm Michelle, I'm John's granddaughter, his first and only granddaughter. I have a lot of really great memories of my grandfather, a lot of them centering around his weirdness, but really pleasurable memories spending time with him at the Brownstone in Brooklyn and at his lake house in Carmel, and even in high school when he came to live with us after his heart surgery. But I think a lot of what's been shared today is about, you know, his early life, and I think what really comes to mind for me when I think of my Grandpa John is actually the Aigner legacy that he's helping leave to us. Because John and Steve and Anne-Marie have worked, and even, you know, my mother and everybody in the Aigner family has worked really hard in the past 15 years to make sure that Grandpa Lucian's legacy and the Aigner legacy remains and is known. And I wasn't alive for a lot of the historic part of the Aigner time, and I feel extremely connected to it. My husband has heard the stories 500 times. We have the photographs in our house that have been passed down. But not only that, for every holiday, and I would say probably the past 10 years, Grandpa John has given my brothers and I a gift for Christmas that is always centered around the Aigner family. We have hard drives of presentations. We have books that he created us of photos of the family that have writings from even Grandpa Lucian. And I think that that's really unique and really special. And even now, you know, when you receive a gift like that, you look at it, you bring it home, you put it in the bookshelf. And I didn't look at them for several years. And recently I opened it up, coincidentally, right around the time period we were getting ready for this. And I read the book from cover to cover because it's fascinating. And I think that without Grandpa John's real passion for sharing that, that would get forgotten in our generation. And I think it's really amazing that he put so much effort and time and passion into carrying that on. And I feel really grateful for that. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I thought I knew John Aigner. Well, now I do know him a lot better. John spent the last 17 years in my house, 10 Ellis Place, and I'm so happy to tell you that there are several of his housemates here. That's what kind of place we had. It was a community, not a controlling community, believe me. It was free form. And John really fit in. To get acquainted with him, I spent at least an hour, maybe longer, in a tea house in Ossining, no longer there, just to see who this guy was. Because he had kind of a quirky background. And we like quirky, but somehow he was more than the usual. And so I was being a little cautious. But it was a very pleasant cup of tea, and I made the right choice. So he lasted the last 17 years, I think it is, in our house. And we were so happy to have him. And he is definitely a hole in the place now, but that hole will be filled. Yes, it will. And it was a pleasure to have him. And I'm just so happy to see his housemates here. It's really great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm wife number one, but I'm not reading for myself. I'm reading for Kay Zental, who is John's cousin and could not be with us today. So this is from Kay. My cousin Johnny was in my life from the beginning, but it wasn't until he moved in with us in Washington Heights in the mid-50s that he became real and present. A young student at CCNY, he took over my grandmother's little room after she died and became a member of our more immediate family. The space was small, but he found room for a record player and his beloved LPs, and this was my gateway to the folk music that would become so important in my life. The Weavers, Pete Seeger, Burl Ives, Harry Belafonte, Odetta. He had great taste and a passion for the stuff, and it informed my life and helped shape my own style and taste. He was no big brother, I had one of those, but a presence for the years he was there. My mother adored him. He could do no wrong, even when he did do wrong. But she also loved Sheila, and when they married, she had a reception for them in our new home in Mount Vernon. It was so exciting for me, so romantic. John even had a Vespa scooter. I was attached enough to the young couple to be allowed to sleep over with them in their new apartment digs in Washington Heights. And I remember my mother going down to Falls Church, Virginia to visit when they relocated down there. Our family stayed close. Next point of real contact was a decade or more later when John and Sheila and little Lisa and Robin were living in Mount Vernon, and I'd just gotten out of college with a broken heart and a profound need to launch. But how? As I realigned my life in New York, I was living with my parents and working for my father as a stopgap, as was John. And I remember evenings driving the short way to the Aigners after dinner for weed and sympathy. We'd talk mystery books and do jigsaw puzzles and hang out. I was in a safe place with them when I needed it most. Once I found an apartment in the city, John hired me as a temp to help out at a local Westchester newspaper he was publishing. It wasn't a long gig, but those reverse commutes somehow helped anchor me, and again, I was in a safe place with my cousin at the helm. A few years later, John re-emerged as his marriage was teetering. He'd take me to dinner at a local Fern bar on the Upper West Side, a luxury for me, and treated me like the grown-up I wasn't. But it was an important touchstone. We were becoming equals, mutual admiration and mutual respect. California. He was selling solar panels. Was there nothing that man could not sell? And not living far from Bill and me. We hung out, had dinners together, again, casual and family. And once John returned east, again to reinvent himself, and when Bill and I came to visit, there was always a meal we'd share together. Stacia was very much in the picture by then, and we all got along nicely. Allison's arrival was a big deal, I remember, and even more reason for a get-together with the Aigners. The years passed, and living on two coasts, we drifted a bit, but a connection remained. And yet the most significant connections for me were the earlier ones, when John was a part of my girlhood and was there when I stepped into something like adulthood. It was a thrill to be his cousin.
We have heard just a drop of the stories of John's life. this is not the only day we will share stories. We are going to ring a bell 3 times in honor of those stories that have been shared in the past, in honor of the stories that we shared together in this room today, and for the stories we will share in tables, over meals, for days, weeks, years, decades, generations to come. Phyllis has a special reading from a poem that John really enjoyed by the poet Mary Oliver.
I put my glasses on for this. It's been a while since I've been in this church. It's very nice to see everybody. It's been a long time. The poem is called Don't Hesitate. And after hearing all these stories about John, he never hesitated. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise, and we are not often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is the way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all of the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not something made to be a crumb. When I read this, one of the girls sent it to me as something to choose, and I said, oh my God, don't hesitate. Obviously, John never hesitated. He went on. Thanks.
Phyllis whispered to me, she said, Reverend, I thought you were going to burn the chapel down because there are so many memories. Would you join in a moment of prayer? Spirit of life and love, bigger than the universe, smaller than a grain of sand, be with us as we strive to be those caring people that John held in such high regard. We now are keepers of stories, are keepers of habits, are keepers of dreams and visions. Let us, in the manifold ways we go about the world, remember what sparks of joy emanated in John's life. John honored his ancestors. He strove to be a good ancestor. We have an amazing opportunity as family, as friends, as colleagues, as congregants, as peers, even on this sad day, to remember that real love is the love that accompanies in the hard times. Love is not conflict-free. Love is not avoidant. Love is a commitment to continue to show up. Give us the grace and power and imagination and John's spirit of relentless curiosity to show up. And we ask this through the creative power of love unfolding. May it be so. I'll ring the bell once for a moment of silence for John. And then we're going to hear a beautiful song in his honor.
This is a song by Harry Nilsson that you probably know, and if you want to sing along during the la la la's, that's great. I really hope I don't burst into tears. Everybody's talking at me. I don't hear a word they're saying. Only the echoes of my mind. People stop and stare. I can't see their faces, only the shadows of their eyes. I'm going where the sun keeps shining in the pouring rain. Going where the weather suits my clothes. Sailing over the northeast winds, sailing on a summer breeze. Skipping over the ocean like a stone. La 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 la. La 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 la. I'm going where the sun keeps shining through the pouring rain. Going where the weather suits my clothes. Sailing over the northeast winds, sailing on a summer breeze. Skipping over the ocean like a stone. I won't let you leave my love behind. No, I won't let you leave my love behind. I won't let you leave.
Now is the time. In a moment we will extinguish this chalice flame. But one thing I must point out is one of the largest candles has not been lit, which means there's probably a story or two, a memory that you're holding close that I think maybe we can share at your table in Fellowship Hall. Maybe you can share next week. Maybe you can call one of the wonderful people in this room and have one of those 5 o'clock calls to connect. Because now we're the holders of the flame. We're writing the next chapter. You're writing your own stories, just as John wrote his. And please pick up a copy. Friends, family, colleagues, peers, may you be surrounded by love. May you encounter and be accompanied with hope. And may surprise, delight, and joy meet you even on those hard days. Through the power of love unfolding, amen. I will now extinguish this chalice flame, but I invite us as a community to read the unison affirmation in the program. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We remember John today and in the days to come, deep in the sanctuaries of our hearts. Our service today has ended. You are welcome to stay. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's not done yet. That's why that flame was there. For Lisa's family message.
Yes. Okay. Give me, of course, I forgot my paper copy, so I'm doing it on my phone, so forgive me. I know most of you have heard that I am John's eldest daughter, but I'm Lisa, his eldest daughter. Thank you all for coming today to celebrate the life of our dad, John Aigner. Whether you were family, friends, neighbors, or acquaintances of John's, he meant something to you, and we really appreciate your presence here celebrating him. And this is a celebration. I know it's sad, but it's still a celebration. In the almost 2 months since Dad passed, I learned so much about his life before becoming a dad. I learned that he graduated high school at 15 and then went to college before most are even thinking or considering it. I learned, and you did too, that he was a reporter in his 20s, as you've heard from Gil, read some of his readings, or some of his articles. You'll get to see some of his articles and bylines in the memorabilia books we have for you to look at in the fellowship hall. I learned that his network and his community was wider and stretched further than I ever knew. I also learned that even though I thought I knew him, I only knew him as a daughter would. In connecting with some of my family, in connecting with so many of his friends and community after he passed, I learned that he was well loved and respected for his stimulating intellect and canny ability to always challenge the game, as you heard from Al, challenge the conversation, as most of you have experienced personally, challenge why, and challenge the status quo. Maybe I should have asked the questions about his life before I was born, but I'm glad I've gotten to know him even more about who he is or who he was. His passions were pretty broad. Anytime he set his mind to do something, he gave it his all. You've heard this from so many people. First his memoir, wisdom magnets, making terrariums, legacy videos, which was capturing the memories of his clients on video, and his last couple of projects, Safe Senior and his Poppy in the Cloud podcasts. Hey Gil, by any chance, is there a surprise video memoir that you helped him create?
Sort of.
Okay. I knew there was one more. I was always impressed and proud of how far ahead of his time he was technologically. I have a very vivid memory of how far ahead of the curve he was. I was about 19 or 20, working for him on the weekends when his office livelihood was right across from Grand Central Station. He asked me to do a search for something on a computer, on the World Wide Web. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. After some basic direction, he just wanted you to figure it out. Gosh, I was so lost. He wasn't a coddler. He challenged me to figure it out, and I was really frustrated. I think I figured it out, but... More recently, at 85 years young, he was totally immersed in AI, artificial intelligence, and artificial illustrations, as you heard from Anne-Marie about ChatGPT, creating a book and artwork by giving some basic commands to a computer. Go figure. I asked a lot of questions about it and challenged him on it as well when we talked, but I still really hadn't gotten the extent of it. He was immersed in it, soaking in all he could, learning and experimenting, trying new programs and technologies to assist an aging community. He saw the need. I'm sure many of you have heard from him what he was working on with AI. It was all he talked about for a long time. I was so impressed with him. I was really proud of him that he challenged himself so much and that he was so passionate with any projects he was working on. Since I lived out of state and was in New York often, I would make sure we had breakfast or lunch together fairly regularly. He was really good about keeping in touch and updating on me on his activities and projects. You also heard Allison say he called multiple times, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too. He called multiple times, and sometimes I rolled my eyes as well and said, oh, I can't talk to him right now, I'll call him back. I always did. But I am so incredibly grateful and happy that I can stand here and tell you how close I was with him. We worked hard on our relationship to get there and to stay there. I loved him very much, and I will miss him deeply. I have one more thing to read, just kind of leave you with some final thoughts. And this is not really from me, it's more coming from my dad. I felt like this was really fitting. It's called Farewell, My Friends by Gitanjali Ghee. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the strings pulling at the heart and soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when time raced me by. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I'll like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember then you never die. And this is a testament to his love and friendship from this congregation, from his family, from his circle, from his community, from his house where he lived. Thank you. Do you want me to announce it? Are you done? Okay, thank you.
Our service is sacred. This moment is changing, but the spirit of it is here now, just like in that poem, just like in all the stories shared. You are welcome to be in this sanctuary as long as you'd like. The family invites you to the Cynthia Morehouse Fellowship Hall right behind us. There's beautiful food, good company, flowers, diverse, reminding us of the very pathways we've come into this one sanctuary today. We might not all be in the same room ever again, but we've shared this moment. And let's see what happens next. May you find love and know it. May it be so.